100%. Elijah, he got a pass, but the rest of us, we have to get ready for it. So I'm going to talk to you today about 5 documents that usually come up in putting together an estate plan. I've provided you with an estate planning intake worksheet that's going to cover 4 of those documents, and then I'm going to briefly mention the 5th document. But the 4 documents that I recommend for everybody to have, whether you're 19 or 90, whether you have any property or not, one is a last will and testament. After you pass away, planning as to who's going to inherit your property, how property is going to be managed, who's going to take care of children, whether minor children, who you want to see take care of maybe incapacitated family members. You're going to have all that information in your will. Your will's going to provide your directions for after you pass away. So your will, commonly talked about, commonly thought about as your plan after you pass away. We talk about wills regularly, but this is so important for us to have these opportunities to learn about wills and estate planning. A few years ago, H&R Block, the tax company, conducted a survey of how many people in our country had wills, had estate plans. Their survey showed only 30% of folks in our country had wills. Recent survey from another legal group only found 25% of folks had a will. And so it is a purpose of mine. It is a drive of mine to make sure those percentages go up. As an attorney, I want to make sure that you have wills, and we're going to talk about how we're going to cut out some laws that make your estate planning a little more expensive. So after you pass away, I recommend that you have a will to direct who's going to inherit your property, who may be taking care of children. While you're alive, to help you get prepared for your eventual passing, I recommend you have 3 documents. Now, up until 2012, it used to just be 2 documents, but in 2011, Alabama's legislature adopted the Uniform Power of Attorney Act. And after Alabama adopted that Uniform Power of Attorney Act, we took our former general durable power of attorney and split it into 2. So now I recommend that you have a financial power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, and then a healthcare directive. So if y'all have those worksheets, if you would look at the first page of that worksheet entitled Estate Planning Intake Worksheet. If you have any interest at all in any of these documents, I'm going to make sure you have one of these worksheets. If you're coming to my office, planning a visit to my office, I'm going to provide you one of these worksheets. My staff emails it to you, or you can pick them up at my office. On that first page, this is a very important starting point for your estate plan. On that worksheet, there is information about you, spouse, first name, middle name, last name. I want to put on the documents how you want your names to be referred. I had some wills and powers of attorney being signed on Friday. The couple has 4 children. They put all of the names of their children there. I asked them, I said, I don't think that daughter that has 4 names really wants to sign with all 4 names. I said, you're right. So we knocked one of those out. So I want to know how you want your names to read in the document. Some folks might just want to have first and last. Some might want to have a middle initial. Some might want to have that full middle name. So this is a very important starting point for you as we're going to put together your estate plan. First name, middle name, last name, addresses. I'm going to recite in your documents that you are a resident of Morgan County, that you're a resident of Baldwin County. Doesn't really matter so much about the county. We just want to show that Alabama law applies. Now, it is possible to have an Alabama-generated will based on Alabama law, and you have property in Florida, you have property in other states, but I want to tie you in to Alabama law. So we're going to use that address to recite in your will, in your powers of attorney, that you're a resident of Morgan County or the county of your residence. I always hesitate to ask folks their date of birth. Sometimes that's important. That's information they don't want to share. But all throughout this process, I'm gathering information from you to help prove you have testamentary capacity. At the time you're drafting these documents, you know who your rightful heirs are. You know your date of birth. I also ask at the time you're signing your will, I'm going to ask you a few questions such as, can you tell me today who is the President of the United States? Who is the previous president? Who's the governor? Now, a lot of our elected officials would be surprised to say, or to learn, that a lot of people don't know. Who is the mayor of the city of Decatur? Who is the chairman of the county commission? So sometimes we have to skip off the political questions, ask your date of birth, ask children's names, what season of the year are we in? I used to ask too, can you tell me who is the head football coach at the University of Alabama? People are struggling with that right now. And some of the Auburn folks too with their coach as well. So this information, you are proving to me without really knowing it that you have testamentary capacity. You are going to be able to sign these documents tomorrow morning. I am being asked to testify in a case. I was appointed as conservator, court-appointed conservator over the assets of a gentleman. He had had his will prepared a few months before I took over. It is at issue whether he had the capacity to sign that will. I'm not going to be able to provide much. I wasn't there when the will was signed, but that's very important. If we're going to put together these documents, we want to make sure they're going to stand up to questioning from family members or any creditors that you might have. All right, so if you'll turn the page. The first area that we're going to cover in estate planning is the information for your will. In your will, again, we're going to make sure we have your name like you want it to read. I have to emphasize to my staff from time to time, don't deviate from that name there. That's coming from you, how you want your name to read. We're going to start your will. Again, we're going to state that you're a resident of Morgan County, Lawrence County, whatever county. Then our first provision of the wills that I prepare, we're going to define a term per stirpes. Per stirpes means that if I leave all of my property to Amy per stirpes, and Amy were to predecease me, we need to cover the next person to inherit. I don't need to create a will where I'm just naming Amy and that's it. We've got to have successors, alternates. So I define the term per stirpes. You go to the next level of representation in a family. So we define that term per stirpes. Item 2, in most of the wills that I prepare, you are telling the court, you are telling your family that you want your debts and expenses to be paid. Alabama law requires that anyway. This just makes you look like fine, upstanding people. You want your debts to be paid. So it's like, hey, that Amy, she's a good girl. She wants to pay your debts. So we state that in your will. You want your debts to be paid. And then item 3, if you look at the top of this estate planning document, there are blanks for children. Item 3 in most wills that I prepare is an identification paragraph. We're going to state in the identification paragraph that you're married or not married, and that you have 1 child, 2 children, 3 children. And you want to be specific as to your children, your natural children, versus stepchildren. Back a few years ago, I created a will for a gentleman who passed recently. He told me that he had 3 children. He's passed. I was talking to one child and said, oh, well, I need some information on your brother and sister. I don't have a brother and sister. Turns out those were stepchildren. So we stated in this gentleman's will that he had 3 children. He actually just had 1 natural child, 2 stepchildren. and he was not leaving them anything in the will. He was leaving things to their children. So we had to have some explanation in the documents we filed at court to explain, while this gentleman stated in his will that he had 3 children, he only had 1 natural child and 2 stepchildren. And that delayed the getting this estate open. We were just able to open this past week. So this identification paragraph is very important. It helps to show you have testamentary capacity, and it can help to prevent fraud. Belinda back there, she has she'll put in her will that she's got children, and she passes away, and we're going to say our final goodbyes to Belinda, and I come up and I tell her family, I really am going to miss Mom. It's like, okay, where'd you come from? Because we don't have you listed in Belinda's list of who children are. And you would like to think that doesn't happen, but we are seeing increasing more fraud. People want to claim, they want to see what they can get from folks, and just to be plain out mean, they will make these type of claims. I have only had 1 case that I know of where somebody came forward claiming to be a child and looked a lot like the gentleman in the casket. Fortunately, he didn't claim anything. He just wanted to meet his family. So it's going to be vitally important that you give us the information, who your children are, who spouses are, and have any children predeceased you. A lot of times when you mention them in that identification paragraph, but then you are not going to leave those children any property, then they can't say that you forgot them. They were listed in there. And let me go ahead and throw this in there. I see a lot of folks a lot of times will be upset with a family member, with a child, and they'll say, well, I leave Doug Backus $1. Well, there's a message in that. But if you say you're leaving Doug Backus $1, then your estate still has to give Doug Backus $1. So that can be a little bit of extra effort that that Doug has caused some pain and some extra steps in your will. But sometimes in that identification paragraph, we'll recite that while I have these children, Doug has already received his part while I was alive. So we have the identification paragraph. Above that information, we have the term executor. It's more commonly used now, personal representative. We're going to list in your will who you would like to serve as your executor, sometimes called administrator, but more commonly now, a personal representative. A personal representative is who is going to handle your estate after you pass away. The person you nominate as your personal representative will take control of your property, notify creditors, work with attorneys to file the documents to open the estate, to file the estate paperwork at the probate court, at the courthouse, make sure property's held for a minimum time period of 6 months to see if there's any creditors coming against your estate. Then if any creditors come, the personal representative would pay those creditors and then distribute the property to the beneficiaries that you've named in your will. So the personal representative has quite a bit of duties to take care of, and you are nominating your personal representative. You're not officially appointing. A personal representative is named, is appointed by the court. I might look like I'm a fine, upstanding guy. He wears a bow tie. He must be a good guy. But I could steal everybody's money. I could beat kids. So I have to be checked out before I'm going to be appointed as personal representative. So you are nominating a personal representative. And as you're going to see throughout the talk of this worksheet, there's multiple lines there. I usually recommend that you have multiple choices for that position of personal representative. Just because you're nominating somebody to serve doesn't mean they have to do it. More and more folks are naming me. My law partner, Jeff Gray, he is the county administrator for Morgan County. If there is nobody able to, willing to serve in an estate, then he is regularly appointed by our courts to handle estates. But just because you nominate someone doesn't mean they're going to serve. You do want to name folks that you can trust, that you think are going to carry out your wishes. So you are naming them, nominating them, and as I said, there's several lines, but just because there's 3 lines doesn't mean you can't nominate 6 folks or 10 folks, however many you want to be considered. More and more, as people are naming me or your insurance agent or your CPA, then the family you're naming first and second, they're like, oh, let Doug do it. Oh, let this person do it. We are glad to serve if we are asked to handle estates. So that is what an executor does, and a couple of different requirements of personal representatives that we're going to usually waive in your will is we're not going to require your personal representative to be bonded. If you don't have a will, someone is appointed as personal representative to handle your estate. Under Alabama law, that personal representative has to be bonded, has to go to an insurance company, get a bond to cover the value of your personal property, your liquid assets. That can be expensive, several $100s, several thousands of dollars. So with the will, you can waive that requirement, unless you don't trust the people that you're naming, and then you might still have them bonded. We're also going to waive usually the requirement of personal representative file an inventory of your estate. That the personal representative doesn't have to go through your house and file an inventory with the court to state that you've got 5 forks and 3 spoons and bedroom suits, and you got this storage building over here on Modus that's just chock full of all kinds of treasures that you have put in there. So we're usually going to waive that inventory requirement. And we're also not going to require the personal representative to close your estate. Just because the estate is open, we're going to save sometimes a few dollars by not closing it out. So those are going to be some requirements under Alabama law we're usually going to waive for the executor. Who should receive your estate? Very important. These provisions we just have generically placed in order: spouse, kids equally, kids in percentages, other. Under Alabama law, you have to leave property to 2 people: spouses and dependent children. Children under the age of 19 here in Alabama. Now, if you have a prenuptial or a postnuptial agreement with a spouse, then you don't have to leave them any property. You don't have to leave them property through your will. But if you don't have one of those documents, even if they say, oh, you don't have to leave me anything, just wait till you pass away, they might want something then. So if you don't have a prenuptial, postnuptial agreement, then you're going to have to leave property to a spouse. Regularly, you're going to leave property to a spouse first, or you're going to leave property to a spouse and children in some percentages. I'm not going to let you, in your will, leave a will open-ended. So we have these choices in who should receive my estate. We're going to name specific beneficiaries as far down the line as you want to go. You're going to leave property to spouse. I have 3 children. Today I would leave them all 3. Last week, no, the daughters, he would have been out. Forget it. So I'm going to leave property to 3 children, and then I'm either going to use that term per stirpes. So if one of my children predeceases me, then their share would then pass to their children on down the line. Or if there's nobody down the line, then we're going to go back up the line. Per stirpes allows us to go down the line and up the line to parents, siblings, nieces, and nephews. You don't have anybody left here, but you got your great Aunt Edna in Omaha, Nebraska. It's her lucky day. She gets to inherit from you. So we're either going to have your specifically named beneficiaries and then the term per stirpes, or If you say, no, I only want to leave property to these folks, Edna, she gets to take care of herself. Edna's not checked on me very much. So I'm going to leave my property to a specific institution, to an institution that you think is going to be around for a long time, such as a church, such as the church at Stone River. Or you can leave them, the church at Stone River, at the same percentage you do with a spouse. Churches like to be mentioned in the estate plan, so I always make that a plug for them. But you're going to have leave property to specifically named beneficiaries. If you only want to go so far down the line, then you can leave property to church, St. Jude's, which is mentioned more than any other organization in the estate plans I put together, American Cancer Society, those types of organizations. Now, a little bit of word about that. These organizations really look into the property that you're leaving them. And if there gets to be any change in the estate plans where you're leaving to organization, then they will participate in that estate plan to make sure they're receiving the percentages that they're supposed to inherit, or that you were wanting them to inherit. So we have those categories. Now, to go along with those categories, then at the bottom, specific and charitable bequest. Most fights that I've seen in estate planning is over personal property. Grandfather's pocket knife. There's a closet in my office right outside my conference room. I kept a cross-stitch family tree and a shotgun in that closet for 4 years before Judge Haddock determined who inherited the cross-stitch family tree and the shotgun. So that specific bequest list, that can cut down on a lot of controversy. I usually recommend you can list each item as an item in the main body of your will. I oftentimes recommend that we have an Exhibit A paragraph in your will so that you're not putting the watch and the chair and the pen and the shoes in the body of the will. You have an Exhibit A to your will. You have an addendum to your will that has those items. Now, another word about that, all these documents I'm talking about to you today, I have you sign 2 copies. I keep a set as a duplicate original, and you have a set. So if you're going to do this specific list, and I was going to leave Amy the microphone, but I said, no, Amy doesn't need the microphone. I'm going to give it to Belinda. And you change it in one list, but you don't change it in mine, then we've got a conflict as to who's going to inherit that microphone. So if you do follow through with having that Exhibit A, you want to make sure that both of them are consistent. Unfortunately, I prepared documents for a client a few years ago that passed away this year in a house fire. Her copy of the will burned in the house fire. So I had that duplicate original. The will recites that. My copy's a duplicate original. We can file that will to start her estate plan. So that's why I've done it. And unfortunately, sometimes wills are taken by children wanting to stop a certain line of inheritance. That's not going to stop it by taking the copy that you have. But we have that provision for specific and charitable bequest to go to churches, organizations, or just to remember a friend or someone who helps you around the house or whatever the case may be. Now, when you are leaving property to your beneficiaries, in Alabama, you're an adult at 19. If you have property going to anyone under the age of 19 directly, then if that beneficiary received that property, they couldn't do anything with it. They're not able to contract, they're not able to conduct business on their own. So over the next page, we have a category where you can leave the property to minor children in trust until they reach a certain age. Just because you become an adult in Alabama doesn't mean you have to end that trust at 19. When I first started practicing back in the mid-90s, most trusts that we were preparing would end when a beneficiary reached age 21, 22. Last year, I was able to, I attended the school board conference and listened to a professor from Auburn who teaches at Auburn on development of the teen brain. And she shared with us that sometimes the teen brain is not fully formed. By 21, 22, 23, 30, 35. So you can put whatever ages you would like to end that trust. And you see that if it's minor heirs, but it could be adult heirs, you can stagger the trust to provide distributions at 25, at 30, 35. I recently had 10% at 25, 30% at 30, 30% at 35, and 30% at 40. One fellow I know, his father left property in trust for him until he turned 50. And Dad passed away, and he just couldn't handle real estate, so he needed help in taking care of that property. So Dad was wise to have somebody to help him until he turned 50. Trustees, you're naming them. I mentioned to you with personal representatives, you are nominating them. The court is appointing them. Trustees, you're naming them. So hence the name trustee, you really have to trust this person. Because as soon as your will is admitted to probate, that trustee is going to be appointed and is going to oversee the property that's going into trust. The trustee is not usually bonded. So if the trustee were to run off with the money, there is not that bond or insurance policy to replace the money that might have been taken. Just because there's 2 lines for trustee doesn't mean that you can't name or nominate 6 different folks to, or name 6 different folks to be that trustee. Another very, very important provision in your will for those who may have minor children that may still be minors at death of the parent. If they're minors, then we need to nominate a guardian, somebody who is going to take care of those minor children, make medical decisions, provide housing for that child until they turn age 19 here in Alabama. So you nominate the guardian. Again, the guardian has to be checked out by the court before they're named. So you're going to nominate a guardian. You're also, it's not listed here, going to nominate a conservator. A conservator is a guardian over property that the beneficiary might receive outside of the will, like life insurance, wrongful death proceeds, something along those lines. I usually like to limit the amount of property that a beneficiary may receive outside of the will because that can only be held for them until they turn 19. My oldest is 19 right now. There's no way he's touching $1,000, $10,000, any amount of money. It needs to be held for him to help him oversee his property. A few years ago, I had a mother that passed away. She had breast cancer. She died in her early 50s. She was survived by a 22-year-old daughter who was a senior in college. Only child. She inherits a fully paid for house. She receives $500,000 in insurance, has quite a few other properties. This young lady was dating a young man that saw this young lady. Her first purchase was a Louis Vuitton purse. Her second purchase, she paid cash for a Toyota 4Runner. So this young man thinks, oh, we're about to do pretty well. And there was not immediately anyone to stop what unfortunately we call Johnny Gold Digger from thinking he's going to get into this estate. Fortunately, grandparents were able to step in and stop too much of an intrusion in the estate. So these positions we mentioned, trustee, guardian, conservator, are very, very important. Most of the wills that I prepare now have a no contest provision in them. Your wishes are going to be carried out. Your beneficiaries are inheriting what was left. We're not going to have any fighting. And if you try to fight, then you're out. They're either out, removed, or they're going to get a lesser percentage, whatever you would like to leave in there. But unfortunately, I've seen a rise of contests, this, that, and the other. Somebody wasn't in their rightful mind. I was in their right mind. Last year, some children were trying to contest a will. They appeared in front of Judge Kane here in Morgan County, and they said, "Oh, Dad, he forgot." So he wasn't in his right mind. And the estate attorney inserted a DVD, and there was Dad. And he was talking to the children and said, "You're not inheriting because of da, 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 da." They got up and left because Dad had not forgot them. Dad was not leaving them anything. So we've got greater use of the no contest provisions. Another power that we're going to mention, we've started adding to wills here late, is giving your personal representative, giving those involved in your estate, the ability to access your digital assets. Y'all know what a digital asset is? Bitcoin. Alabama adopted the Uniform Access to Digital Assets Act in 2018. The Bitcoin, those companies want specific provision in your will to show the personal representative can deal in that Bitcoin, can access your digital passwords. So that is in there. That's something I include in the will, and most of the time I have no idea what it does, but we're putting it in your will. You can also put in your will burial instructions. It's not legally binding, but from time to time we have forgotten to tell our family we want to be cremated. We want to bury at a particular place. There's these burial plots. So if you mention that in your will, that's just another message that you're giving to your family how you would like to be, your remains to be disposed of. The funerals have gotten more expensive. Cremations have gotten more expensive. So I have seen quite a bit of mention of cremation for your remains. It is against federal law to be placed, your remains to be dumped into water. You can't be dumped any closer to 3 nautical miles from a shoreline. I have some family members who really want to be placed in a creek in the Smoky Mountains. It's like, you're not going in the creek. Maybe you can get real close to it. It is amazing to me how much accidental dropping of ashes occurs. I was just walking along the creek and oops, I tripped and fell. I had a client who wanted her ashes poured on the old home place. Her family didn't own the old home place any longer. Daughter just happened to be walking down the road and tripped and fell over that fence post and accidentally spilled mom's remains onto the property. That all goes into your will. Very important to have. That all helps to save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. If you don't have a will, Alabama gives you a will. Alabama law provides the provisions of who inherits, what the responsibilities of the personal representative are. Your will helps to speed some things up. Under Alabama law, creditors have 2 years from your death to come against your estate. When you probate a will or open estate, you shorten that time period to 6 months from the date the estate is open. So you see a lot less process. So that is a lot of information about wills. And so that's after you pass away. The other documents I believe that you should have also mentioned after the will information: power of attorneys and advance directive for health care. Well, Doug, why do we have 2 health care documents? Healthcare power of attorney we created again after the Power of Attorney Act came into being in 2012. The healthcare power of attorney and the financial power of attorney mentioned have to be followed under Alabama law. Before 2012, they did not have to be. So the powers of attorney have more teeth than they used to. The financial power of attorney, you're naming alternates to serve if your first named trust or attorney in fact can't serve. And then if you just put 3 alternates or 3 possible attorneys in fact there, Alabama law allows the last person named to name a substitute. So there can be some continuity in that service as your personal representative, as your attorney in fact. Financial powers of attorney, often think need for emergency situations, but I use my wife's power of attorney. I sign her name on her tax return every year. Just because we're married, I can't access her financial information. I show the IRS that I have the ability to handle her financial information, and I attach that power of attorney to her tax return. The healthcare power of attorney and the healthcare directive support one another. They work hand in hand. Healthcare power of attorney, you are naming attorneys in fact or proxies to be able to make medical decisions for you, and very well could be the one to pull the plug, make that decision that your life could be terminated. Your life can be ended if there doesn't appear to be quality of life anymore. So the healthcare power of attorney has to be followed under Alabama law. The healthcare directive does not. Your advance directive for healthcare is the more specific document of these three that I've mentioned to you. In your advance directive for healthcare, it's a combination of a living will and a healthcare power of attorney. In your living will, I'm going to lead you through two areas: terminal illness or injury and permanent unconsciousness. If two doctors, not just one, believe you are terminally ill or injured, death is imminent, or to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, your life is hopeless unless supported by artificial means. Or if two doctors determine you are permanently unconscious, you are brain dead in vegetative state, then you're going to initial the choice. Do you want to be on life support or not? Do you want tube feeding of food and water or not? Do you want something for pain? And then you're going to list who you want the doctors to talk to about carrying out these decisions. There's also some blank paragraphs in the advance directive for healthcare where you can leave some specific instructions. You want to die at home as opposed to the hospital. You would like for the medical staff, if at all possible, to pump some coffee into your IV. I've had that written in there. And one of the best, and I mean this lady was really serious. This lady wrote in there, please make sure that I have my face cream and eyeliner on at the hospital. And I looked at her husband and I asked, have you ever put her face cream and eyeliner on? And he said, no. I said, you might want to practice. So you can put in that paragraph whatever you would like to. One of the toughest decisions in the advance directive for healthcare is the conflicting provisions. You're going to go through and you're going to mark whether you want to be on life support or not. And that's somewhat easy to do while you're sitting in my office or you're sitting at home filling out that form. But you become incapacitated. You're not able to talk to the doctor. The doctor comes to spouse or child, to your proxy, and says, okay, well, mom has put that she don't want to be on life support. And the child says, no, God's telling me to give her a couple more weeks. You're going to determine, you're going to decide, can your proxy override what you've put? Can your proxy make a decision different than what you've put in the document? That's one of the most difficult decisions to make is, okay, it's time for me to go. Nobody's going to overturn my decision. Or, well, they might gather some information that the doctors don't know. We believe in a big God, and he might determine it's not our time to go. I had originally checked on my healthcare directive that my wife could make the final decision. She said, oh, no, you don't. Whatever you put is what we're going to do. So I changed it to read that way. So those four documents I recommend for everybody. The healthcare directive and the healthcare power of attorney are going to help determine when you die. The financial power of attorney is going to determine what property you own when you die. And then your will is going to determine what happens to your property after you pass away. Now, I told you, I mentioned a fifth document. Regularly, we talk about trusts. Sometimes folks want to skip through. There's not any information in the packet on trust. It's usually just side notes that I take. But you can have what we call revocable trusts or inter vivos revocable trust created during your lifetime. You can go ahead and place property into that trust that would already give other family, give your beneficiaries the rights to interest in that property. And you can avoid some of the probate process by putting the property in trust. If you've got a lot of property to handle, You can put property in trust with a trustee, assist you with the management of that property. And trusts are often used for trying to avoid the estate tax. Right now, the estate tax is I believe it's 11.7 million individually, 23 plus million as a couple for an estate plan. I don't have that problem. I don't have that kind of money. But after the end of next year, unless the administration or Congress changes, those numbers are scheduled to drop to 6 million individually and 12 million for a couple. So sometimes that can bring folks into a bracket and consider going ahead and giving property to others. But those are the 5 documents that we talk about, and really make your day. It is such a bright topic to talk about, planning for death, but it is vitally, vitally important. So I thank you for the time to let me share it with you today.
Wow, that is some fantastic information. I know that I learned a lot. I hope you did too. Our next speaker is Jasmine McRoy. Jasmine is from Roselawn Funeral Home. She is the assistant location manager at Roselawn, and Jasmine is known as a superhero here at Stone River. Jasmine walks with families through this very difficult time of death, and helps them make decisions and plan for this time in life. And I know that the people of Stone River, and I'm sure the people in our community, know her as a very compassionate and kind and knowledgeable person. Jasmine, thank you for coming, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you to the church at Stone River for this opportunity and for welcoming Roselawn. We do appreciate it. I'm going to get my little tablet pulled up here. I don't plan to be before you all long, but I do want to speak on cremation and burial. I do want to clarify a few things and state a few options for you all. Can everyone hear me clearly? No? How about now? Is it okay? I can speak up. It's okay, I can speak up, no worries. I can speak up. But I do want to touch on cremation and burial. And I want to share a few of the options that you all have and speak a little bit about pre-planning for the sake of your families. So you all, let's begin with cremation. So traditionally, I know cremation was known as something that people selected only for the financial aspect of it, or if someone simply desired not to have a service. But that's not the case anymore. Cremation is very broad, and we have numerous options when it comes to cremation. One of those we call the full service cremation. So what is that? That allows you all to have the traditional feel of a burial service. So you all are still able to have an open casket viewing, giving your family and your friends opportunity to come and see you and express their love to your family that's left. You're also able to still have a full service. You all could have that service here at your church, or you could have that service at the funeral home in the chapel. You could still have your amazing pastor officiate the service. You could still have songs, and you'd still get folders for the service. All of that would be the same. The only difference between a full service cremation and your traditional burial service, you all, would be at the end of the service, we would conclude in the church, or we would conclude in the chapel instead of going to the cemetery. Okay, so everything that you all see now in a traditional burial service, you could still do if you select cremation. Okay, what that looks like practically: after the service takes place, the service would conclude, And typically for us, the next day we're able to schedule your cremation. And depending on the schedule of the crematory, we would have your cremains back in our care that following day, if not the day after. And then we would be able to release your cremains to your family. Okay, so the process will be the exact same. You would still get the traditional feel of a burial, but your desire to be cremated will be honored as well. Let's say you don't want that. You don't want to, I've had this said several times. I've had families say, I don't want anyone looking at me. I don't want that, but I do still want a service. You can do that with cremation as well. So with that, you have a couple of options, and that's considered a memorial service, okay? With that, the cremation could take place prior to the service, and your cremains could just be present for the service, okay? And again, the formation of the service would be the exact same. You could still have your pastor to speak for you. You could still have your songs. You could still have everything that you have in a traditional burial service. You just would not physically be present in a casket. You would be present in an urn. You don't have to have the urn either. So if you decide that you don't want an urn present either, you all could just display pictures. You could have flowers. Had one family, a lady loved teapots, and I will never forget it. This has been years ago, but it just sticks in my mind. She was obsessed with teapots. Our chapel was full of teapots. Everyone knew that she loved teapots. So when they walked in, they knew, okay, yeah, this is so her. And most recently, you all, we had a lady, she made quilts. Our chapel was full of quilts. We had quilts on almost every row, so everyone got to sit next to one of her quilts. So it was very, very special. So that's something that you could do. You don't have to have the urn present. Another option for cremation would be the direct cremation. So there are families, and you all may desire not to have anything. That's fine. That is okay. You can just have the cremation take place, select an urn, and after the cremation has been completed, we could release your cremains to your loved ones. That is an option as well, okay? I do want to note this about cremation. You all are still able to bury or entomb cremains. So if maybe you have the conversation with your family and they say, hey, Mom, Dad, I don't really know what I would do with your cremains. You all are able to bury. So if you do have spaces, you are able to bury. If you have a space in the mausoleum, you are able to entomb there as well. So just because you choose cremation, it does not throw that completely out the window. I do want to point that out. One thing I really want to emphasize to you all about cremation is who signs the cremation authorization. That is probably something that we run into very often. It is your legal next of kin. What does that mean? Ideally, it would be your spouse or your children or a sibling, okay? But what if you're not married, you did not have children, and your siblings have passed away? It gets a little interesting, but I do want to say you are still able to be cremated because your cousins are able to sign. The only thing, when you do not have that close relative that you've been in contact with, time is the only factor that is affected here because we do have to wait a certain amount of time just to make sure that you don't have a cousin from, I don't know, Alaska that pops up that says, hey, I want to sign the cremation paperwork, or I do want to take on the responsibility for my dear cousin. We do have to give a certain amount of time. I've had recently a situation where a lady did not have anyone, but she had an awesome neighbor. And that neighbor helped take care of her for over a decade. She didn't have any family. And we were very certain of that, actually knew the lady. We were very certain that she didn't have any family, but we still had to wait a certain amount of time just in case someone decided that they were related to her. But she was able to be cremated because, of course, within that time frame, no one spoke up. So her neighbor was actually able to sign the documents. But again, there will be a delay in time. I do want to point that out. And in regards to burial, I do want to discuss this. A lot of people don't realize that Funeral and cemetery are separate. Very often, I have families come in, I have a daughter or a son come in and say, Mom and Dad took care of everything. They have their plot, they've taken care of their opening and closing, their marker's already down. Everything's done. We don't have anything to worry about. My question is always, okay, so do you have a prearrangement for the funeral side? And they're like, well, no, they took care of everything. That's not always the case. The funeral side is a little bit different. So yes, everything that I just spoke of, that was cemetery. But funerals, there are services that do have to be selected and taken care of in regards to the funeral home. What is that? That's your embalming, if that's what you desire. That's your services. That's your transportation. All of that is separate from the cemetery. So I do want to point that out. That's something that we run into very, very often with our families. Something else that I do want to speak on in regards to a service that I think we should be speaking with our families on now is, do you have cemetery property? Who do you want to officiate your service? Are there songs that you want to be played? Pallbearers. Do you know who you all wish to be pallbearers? They are still needed. Okay, I know that's something that we run into often. Families don't realize that pallbearers are required. Of course, we are honored to step in whenever you all do not have family, but we also don't want to take that away from your dear family and friends either, okay? So that is something to think about. Clothing, casket, do you want metal? Do you want wood? Flowers, do you want the casket open? Are you a veteran? Do you want honors at graveside? All of these questions, you all, that I'm asking, if these questions are not discussed prior to your passing, because I can tell you all are very overwhelmed with the questions that I asked, these are the questions that your children will have to answer. And if we don't have those conversations now, they're not only grieving your loss, but they're just hoping and praying that they're making the right decision to honor you, okay? So that is why I encourage having the conversation. So I'm so grateful for forums like this. Also, pre-planning. I want to throw out the myth of if you have the conversation, it's going to happen, because I've heard that so many times. I think this is a safe space to say God is in control of that. He has the ultimate say-so of when that time comes. So it is okay to have the conversation with your children. It's okay to say, hey, I want you to leave the casket closed. I do not want anyone to see me. Or I don't think I want flowers. Could you just put one rose on the casket? Those things. Have those conversations. And also pre-plan. Because not only will they be overwhelmed with answering those questions, you all, but they're also going to have to take care of the financial aspect as well, okay? And that's a lot to take on when they're missing mama, okay? So I encourage the pre-planning. We have amazing family service counselors here today. I have Jonathan and Cheryl. We're all sitting on the back row there. They are here to answer your questions. We have some information to give out to you all in regards to that pre-planning. I am staying back for the reception as well as Marty. He's one of our amazing funeral directors. And we have Robin here. She is our funeral attendant, and she's awesome as well. And we are all here for you to answer any questions and to bring clarity on anything that you all need that may be specific to you all that I did not discuss, okay? And I just want to thank you all for this opportunity. Roselawn loves Church at Stone River. You all held a very special place in our heart. Thank you all so much for your time.
Okay, I think right now we're going to take just a little bathroom break. And let's meet back in here at 3:20. Let's take a quick bathroom break. How about that? Yep. And if you choose to go back in the gym, you can also take a look at our holistic department, our holistic ministry center It's beautiful, and I'd love for you to take a look at it if you're not familiar with it. I'll be back there. Also, okay, awesome. Alan will show you around. Also, if you want to take the time to look inside your program, there's a list of upcoming events from Holistic Ministry. I would encourage you to take a look at that. We've got some exciting things coming up. I would love for you to take a look at that and see if any of those things interest you. We'll see you in 10 minutes.
Hey.
All right, we're moving back in this direction. Susan, don't make me report you to the principal. Our next speaker is a joy to introduce. Sandra Lott Godbey is an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church. She has been a therapist and a counselor in our community. She has served at Hospice of the Valley as a chaplain, providing bereavement services and visiting and counseling with patients, families, and staff. Sandra is a minister and friend here at Stone River, and it is a joy to have her here today. Thank you for being here.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ted. I think he's coming up here too. Got it, Ted. Thank you, thank you. Oh, mercy. It is such a joy to be with you, and I love talking about being with people who are dying and their families. Now, that may be a shock to a lot of you, but it is one of the most intimate, most loving, sometimes very angry, sometimes very hurtful, and sometimes the most rewarding thing that I have done. And it is being with people who invite you into their home or the facility where they are and will allow you to do whatever they choose you to do. And we'll get to that. I know that I want to give you just a little bit of history of the care for people with palliative care, and also how hospice and the hospice care and trying to do the best for the patient and the families, how that all began. In 1967, Cicely Saunders began St. Christopher's Hospice in England. That was being with the patient, being with the family, and being able to let them lead the way in the ending of their life instead of going in and saying, this medicine, this is what we need, this is what we're going to do this and this and this, and everything is so confusing for the patient and the family. That was in 1967. 1969, here, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, an amazing woman, a pioneer for hospice, a pioneer for end-of-life care, Death and Dying, great book, wonderful woman, and she did the 5 stages of death. And those stages, you don't go from one, I'm through with that, now I'm going to this one and this one. We flip-flop all through the dying process. We flip-flop. But her stages of death, of dying and death, are I always say DABDA, which is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. It does not go, like I said, one to the other. It will go from one day a patient is denying, the other day they're accepting it. The other day it's just, and you go with where the patient is at that moment, because loss of control takes over. Things they've always been able to do, and now they're not able to do anymore. So we allow them to be who they are and control as much as they can control, because their bodies are changing. After Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, another person that is very strong in the palliative care, which means relieving and preventing as much suffering as possible, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, is Therese Rando. She has her stages also. C.S. Lewis, amazing. There's one thing I want to read that C.S. Lewis wrote in one of his many letters. This was in 1959. C.S. Lewis says, there are 3 things we can do about death, and quote, to desire it, to fear it, or to ignore it. And then he adds, in our modern world in 1959, most of the time it is we ignore it. Okay. Then, if you do not know of Dr. Ira Byock, please check him out if you're interested. He is an amazing man who is there to lead, guide, seminars, teach, all of being able to help people walk through this process of dying and death. Amazing man. There are 4 things that he says, and that is every person who is dying, to give them the opportunity to say, please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. And I love you. To be able to say goodbye. It breaks my heart when families do not have an opportunity to say goodbye. Anyway, so that's it. Now, the one that I just really, really love is Dr. Alan Wolfelt. He is a pioneer in these words: companion with those who are dying. Companioning, and that means to walk beside, to sit down on the curb and cry, to be able to be silent and be comfortable in the silence, to not have the answer, to listen when the people are saying, you know, I just don't think I'm going to make it. Instead of what we will say, well, now don't talk like that. Look, there's so many things that can you are companioning, and you go and you are there to say, do you want to talk about that? Companioning. If you want to learn more about companioning, then Dr. Alan Wolfelt. These are just some of the pioneers of palliative care, hospice care, and it's very powerful if you're interested in sitting with, being with people emotionally, and walking with them, sitting with them through this process. So I think you have a sheet of paper. Do you have they're in the back of the seat. You'll see a sheet of paper, and if you would get that sheet of paper, are there colors? Y'all are so into it. Thank you. There are crayons, and so this is a simple exercise. There should be 2 pieces of paper. We'll do the other one in just a minute. This one, get that and get you a crayon, do whatever. And would you please draw what you believe death is right now? Draw it. And the color you chooses, isn't that just, you chooses. The color you choose will say a lot about what you're feeling, what death is. And then draw a line right on the side or underneath it. And there's no right or wrong answer, and we're not going to share it, so don't be concerned about that. At whatever age you are, what is death? And on the other part, on the other side, would you please draw what dying is? Dying is. When you're through, just fold it up. That's yours to take home. When you're finished, would you just look up here so that I can make sure I can start again? Okay. You have another sheet of paper. This is going to be a little difficult. On the other sheet of paper, if you would just tear 7 pieces off of it, and it does not have to be exactly perfect, just tear 7 pieces off. This exercise, well, let me start. The first time I did this exercise in the 80s really helped me look at my life. Simple exercise. On each piece of paper, would you please describe yourself? For example, what you do. For example, if I was doing it, I would say I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a counselor. I enjoy doing chair yoga. I enjoy reading. Somebody may be a great cook. Someone might love to lead meetings. Some people may do whatever. One thing on each piece of paper, describe yourself, just one thing. Please do not put down that you are a Christian. That will never be removed from you. If you love to travel, put it down. Whatever. Woodwork. When you are finished with that, would you please put it in order? The bottom one is the least important. The top one on top will be your most important. The bottom one is the least important, and the top one is the most important. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Kind of hard to decide, isn't it, Miss Amy? I know, boy, do I know. I know. Okay. If you were dying and you knew the doctor said to you, you may have 3 months or a year by all statistics, even though we know that God knows. If you were dying, at one point, you would not be able to do that number 7, the least important one. Take that one out and just look at it. If you were dying, at one point, you would not be able to do that or be that person. Not because you do not want to, and your mind wants to, your body, your heart wants to, but your physical body is just declining a little bit. So please look at what that means to you. And if you were dying, please just wad it up and throw it away. Look at number 6. If you were dying, at one point in your life, you would not be able to be or do like you want to. And this is whatever you wrote. And because your body is tired, you're not thinking as straight, you're just a tad bit confused, just a tad bit. Take that one, and it's time to just wad it up and put it away. Look at number 5. If you were dying, you're not able to do this now, and you know it. You may have to call people to say, I can't do this anymore. If you cannot do it, you're a little tired, a little physically more tired. Think what that entails. Now wad it up and put it away. Look at the next one. Is that number 5? 4? Look at number 4. Put yourself in this place. See yourself doing this. You may have fussed about it sometimes. You may have been tired, but boy, you wish you could do it now. If you were dying, you would have to say, I just can't anymore, and then wad it up. These are the hardest, the last 3. 3, 2, 1. On that third one, it takes too much energy. You know it. You're more in your home now. You're tired. You can't do it. You'll always be that person, but you just can't be and do like you have always wanted to. So just take it, because you can't do it right now. The second one, you are dying, and you can't do it. Take in the second one. Picture yourself doing it with the people. Wad it up. That's your last one right now that describes you. Just think about it. Remember the last time you were able to do this and be with, and if you are close to your death, you're not able to do this, be this like you want to be. So you have to just kind of release and put it away. Just take it in now. Y'all just do what you need to do with it. Take it in. Just think about it. Just for just a little bit. Why in the world would I do that? It's not fun. And it hurts. Because you can just kind of wad those papers up, because we're going to make sure we clean up everything. But people who are dying, it's happening. They're going through all these emotions. We just had a little flicker of them right here, just a little flick. Not what they're going through. The loss of not being able to be like they want, always will be a spouse, always will be a mother, always will be a grandmother, always will, but cannot do these things. What people go through, the dying person. So, y'all just roll your shoulders back a little bit, okay? And just breathe deeply, because I know that was not fun to do. If we are to companion with people who are dying, if we're going to companion with them, then we are going to be beside them when they're going through some of this stuff. Oh, no, don't talk about it. Wrong words. Oh, listen, tomorrow, who knows what the people are going to find? Woo, golly. True, but the person, the precious person, is needing to talk, and if they're able to talk, and if they cannot talk, then they will show with their body, with their facial expression. They have so much control removed from them. They can't be the boss at work anymore. They cannot be the mother they wanted to do, the daddy, the family, whatever. And they're now having someone to turn them over in their bed and clean them up. Sisters and brothers, this is tough stuff. That's a loss. That's privacy. And now they're having to trust people. Sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger who is compassionate and companioning with people than it is to their own family member. Why? We want to protect our family members. We don't want to be able to make them upset. Well, my word, we're all upset. We don't want this loved one to be dying. So, companioning means to listen well, to go in that dark part of the soul when they are needing to be there. If you are one of those people that you have been able to do that with patience, with people, you have had the most holy gift given to you, to be with someone. In the 1980s, I was a part of Hospice of the Valley as the chaplain there. All these wonderful pioneers of the faith, church, the pioneers of the hospice movement and the dying and death and having a good death, as they called it, or dying well, which I think Dr. Bayek said that one, dying well. I learned more. Yes, this stuff that I learned was great. Getting my certificate in thanatology, which is the study of death, is great. It's wonderful. But I learned so much from these families. I learned so much from the patient, from what they said or what they did not say, from the families who don't know what to do and trying to make everything better. But my goodness, here's family members. Always growing up, there's been some fussing. You know, that's just normal stuff. Get on each other's nerves, and you're trying to take care of them, help them. Don't take care of me. I can do it myself, and they start falling. Oh, dear Jesus. As a chaplain for Hospice of the Valley, to be in that home, we were to leave everything else outside. All of our stuff. If we had an argument with our children or our spouse or the boss or whatever, we leave that outside. And we're right there with that individual. It's sometimes it's uncomfortable when you don't know the person you're going to be with. But y'all, they're inviting you into their home. It may have been the family member who did it. It may have been the patient. It may have been both of them, but you're invited into their home. And so wherever the patient, the person is, you are right there. Maybe they don't want you to be close. You don't get close. Maybe they want to fuss. I've had many patients fuss at me, tell me to get out of the place. Well, you think I will do that? Yes, they've got to have some control. Control has just been removed. Then can come back when it's the right timing. You sit with them and care for the individual. You look around and observe your environment. Are there pictures? What are the pictures of on the wall? Are there trophies? Or whatever? Are there toys all over the place? Or whatever. And so you can begin by, looks like you enjoyed doing this. See if that opens a door. Little by little. You must have grandchildren or some child around. What's their name? Oh, okay. Yeah, tell me about, would you mind telling? Then it just grows, just little at a time. The relationship grows, and you're there sitting. If it's your family member, you honor them in almost a new way. To be with them, like Dr. Bayok said, thank you, please forgive me, I forgive you, I love you. When we go into an individual's home or the facility in which they are staying, then we put off everything to be with them. The opportunities when they start talking about their death, boy, it's almost you can just feel angels around. Boy, they're saying things that's so close to them. When you are able to, maybe, if it's the right connection there, that you can write their story down of their life. Oh, tell me, you worked there. Boy, tell me how that was. Gosh, and you're writing it or you're taping it after getting their permission. And then when the death has occurred, to be able to share that with the family. Oh, my goodness. I asked my mother was declining, and I said, Mama, tell me how you would describe my sister, okay, my brother Tommy. Now tell me how you describe me. Whew. Wow. I mean, things that can be said that maybe you've never heard before. But you got to know you're there. You may not want to know. If you don't want to know, don't ask. Let the patient control as much as they can control. There's one patient, which I change stories around because confidentiality is most important. And there is one patient, I'll call him Mr. Abraham, and Mr. Abraham was a mean man. And he was dying, and he was a mean man. I've heard in hospice when I started, the way a person lives is usually the way how they die. Not all the time. Personalities kind of may stay. If they're sweet and kind and get along with each other, they try to be sweet and kind and loving then. If they're fuss pots during life, they most of the time are fuss pots when they're dying. So sometimes brain metastases happen and things happen that changes them completely. But Mr. Abraham was a mean man, and he was mean during his life, and he was mean dying. And Mr. Abraham was estranged from his children, 3 adult children, for years and years. I didn't even know he had children until he told me, and this is what he said to me, because he didn't want me there. His sister wanted me there, and I can understand why, because she was tired of being there with him by herself. But anyway, and so I was there, and little by little, we got a relationship. He controlled it. So what I was blessed to do is when I was about to leave, one time he said, "Chaplain, I want you to find my 3 children." I said, "Mr. Abraham, didn't have any idea you had 3 children." "I do. Haven't seen them in 30 years. "Well, would you tell me their names?" Got the names. This was back in the 80s and 90s. And we had this wonderful secretary at hospice, Miss Reba. And I said, "Miss Reba, start praying, because I have no idea who these people are or where they are in the United States or the world." And so she started praying, and then it worked out because she was such a powerful warrior in prayer. And so I called each, I got the name from a wonderful Bell South operator at that time, who just said, "Oh, let me look all over." Can you believe it? It was God. Let me look all over, and God. So anyway, the there are 2 daughters and 1 son. No, 2 sons and 1 daughter. 2 sons, I didn't know he was living. I don't know if I can be there. I don't know if I want to be there. The daughter wanted to be there. So what happened was, and this was such a gift, that they were able, 2 out of the 3 were able to say what was needed at a visit with their dad before he died, and he was able to say. Dying has a wonderful gift of being able to have opportunity to say goodbye. The last thing is, I want you to remember Miss Annie. I looked at Betty because I didn't know she remembered Miss Annie. Miss Annie was this short little woman, wore a flannel shirt and jogging pants, and she lived on the farm, and she was, teensy weensy little person, and lived on the farm, and she could carry a bale of hay under one arm and a bale of hay over here. Strong woman. And so she allowed me to visit and did not want to talk about anything about dying at all, of course. So I'm just doing what she says. So we get a relationship, walk around her farm, able to do that, doing everything around the house, do stuff like that. Miss Annie knew all her cattle, and she named them. She had no children, but her animals were her children. And this is what she did. As we would walk around, and she'd say, "Okay, chaplain this, chaplain that." "Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am." "Boy, you've taught me so much, Miss Annie. Thank you." One time I came to visit her, and She was not outside, not walking. She was on her couch, and she was just laying down, not speaking, and her heart was broken. And I said, Miss Annie, she said, Chaplain, my bull died. Bully was his name. I want you to pray for Bully. And so we did. And we prayed for Bully, and we prayed that Bully was in heaven around the pasture and doing all that. And she looked at me and she said, and I'm dying too. It opened the door for her to be able to be real with what was going on. If you take your time, usually there'll be a door open somewhere emotionally to be with those precious people. So I leave with this. Thank you. Please forgive me. I forgive you. And I love you. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Our final speaker today is Ted Amy, who is our senior pastor here at Stone River. 7 years ago, along with our congregation, Ted started Stone River. Ted and Jill, his wife, together answer every day such an incredible calling to bring the love of Jesus Christ to everybody, every single day. And I am honored to bring Ted here to you today to talk about the spiritual aspect of end of life.
So there's going to be pens in front of you if you want to grab a pen, or you can use a crayon. And Jennifer is going around, and she is passing out some handouts. And there's going to be, it's more of a worksheet. There's going to be more of those out at the hospitality desk. So if you want to just make some doodles on this and then get another one, what I'm going to get the privilege to do is to talk about the why. Why do we have a celebration of life? This sheet is the how, but I want to get us to the why first, to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about some spiritual aspects about planning for peace. And I want us to get to a place where we're going to be able to have, after this, to have some conversations with some family members, to take back and to look at some of your favorite things, and then for you to come and to see Amy or myself and give us these. Then we're going to put those in, make a digital copy of that, make a copy for you to be able to give to your family and friends, but also have a copy here at the church that we would be able to keep and to have to say, here are some great insight from your loved one as we look forward to this. So 1 Corinthians 15:55, Paul asks a question, death, where's your sting at? Death, where's your victory? Paul is being very confident in the great love of Jesus Christ. Very confident in that incredible peace that comes from everlasting life. But for everyone that is on this side of death, there is a sting. right? We've experienced that sting from loved ones that have gone too quickly. We experienced that sting around all those nasty anniversaries, right? At first, there's birthdays, and there's that date of that doctor, and that date of that final breath, and that date of that ceremony. And then there's that reminder date of, there's no more pain and suffering. But death is very real for us. So as we're looking at this, I want you to look at it with a couple of different eyes. Look at it in the eye of the story that you want to tell about your life, but also look at it in the way that you want to care for all of those that will be here, that will be celebrating your life. Just like we do in all 4 of our worship services, they all point a picture to something much greater than a 45-minute service, right? This is all going to paint a picture much more than a half an hour celebration of life service. It's going to paint a picture of the way that we have planned and prepared and prayed into this incredible gift of life that we've been given. So we look at, and on this idea of prelude, what we're doing right now is the prelude, right? The gift that you're going to be able to give yourself and to give your family is some of the tools you've received today. Imagine if you were able to hear what Doug presented, what Roselawn can offer. Imagine setting up the kind of care to have counselors to be able to come and meet, and when you're meeting with palliative care people or your loved ones are, to let them get to know your family early in the process. The harder things that I want you to do, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow, what things need to be said that have not been said to your loved ones? What words need to come out of your mouth or in a message of, I love you and I forgive you? The hardest things for me as a pastor is to help family members process, this was the last thing I said. And it was so not what I meant. It was so not the words that I wanted to say. So we get a chance in this prelude part of our celebration of life services to start to live a little differently, to make sure there's not things that haven't been said, to make sure that we get a chance to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry there's distance. I'm sorry. And we get a chance to be able to move forward. The things that we talk about a lot here, I think I've only said them maybe 8 times today, was that we get a chance to live on earth as we will in heaven. Heaven's forever, right? Heaven's going to be glorious. No more pain and suffering. Reunited with our loved ones. But if we're here, that means we still have work to do. That still means that there is healing that it needs to happen. That there's people that our breath, our life, our divine spark can still touch in a meaningful way. It's great to go on vacation, but our life is not vacation. Right? If we're here, no matter what stage of life we're in, you have meaning and purpose. You have kindness and goodness inside of you that must be shared with the world. So in this prelude part of the service, where we are today, let's begin to live with that in mind, with that in that sight. Now, it does take it takes 1 to initiate and 2 to cooperate. You need to have a support system. If you're going to go and say that you forgive someone and there's a great chance they're not going to reply, they're going to leave you unread, they're not going to respond in the way that we would all want. So before that, you need to have your people. Right? I'm about to go and make a big risky move with a loved one, and I would love some support in that conversation. Right? Have some people that have you back in prayer. Might have some ice cream or coffee available and ready for a hug. We go into the service. So the why, there's a prelude. The how, it's beautiful. You get, we have Susan Haddock, we have Ann Butler, we have somebody playing beautiful music as people come into a celebration of life. What I would love is from this point on that our life would be lived in that prelude. Right? Barbara Estes is this brilliant, wise, all of us know Barbara, said that death is just part of life. I mean, birth is part of life. Death is part of life. So why don't we plan for it and talk about it and prepare for it? We don't have to have a thing that we have to be in fear of it because we have the great love of a Savior that holds us and comforts us and guides us and walks with us. But as C.S. Lewis and Sandra said, we can't ignore it. So we walk in, and I love the ability to process sin with the family. As all of the church and our loved ones stand, and we say these words of grace, coming from 3 different scriptures, that Jesus is the resurrection and the life. It's a reminder of everyone that those that believe in Jesus, even though they die, yet so they live. And it's these words that say that in Jesus we'll never die. Our flesh will be here, but our spirit will live on in eternity. So it's a reminder of that. And I believe, just like Martin Luther said, that every Sunday is just a small little Easter, right? That we get a chance to be reminded repeatedly of God's great love for us, right? We get a chance just to be reminded of that joy and that hope that God fills us with. And then when we get a chance to do this greeting, the greeting is the part where you've been there. You have circled up with family and friends, a pastor, people that are from your church and prayed over and with a loved one. That circle. You know that circle. Over a hospital bed. That circle in a den where the hospital bed has been moved out into. Sacred, holy ground. This time of greeting is that moment where we get a chance just to be reminded of this whole family is there in one way or another, grieving, mourning, but also to celebrate the circle of life that God gives us. Because we will see our loved ones again. Right? We will have that embrace again. And we move to this time of words of comfort in a prayer. Now, all of these things we can figure out. You can write down if you have a favorite person that can sing incredibly. If you want to use whoever the current pastor of the church is, or you want to use somebody that you've grown up with, you can put all these wishes down. And we'll do our hardest, best effort to get those people for you. But in these words of comfort, in this time of prayer, I would love for you to think who needs to be comforted in the midst of this celebration. And what might be some of those words they might need. I love to make as much personal connection as possible. So in this prayer that we're comforting this family, now, what are those words of comfort? Also, maybe that's going to be a note for you. What are some of those comforting words that you need to share with your loved ones? What is that conversation that you need to have just to say thank you and showcase your gratitude and your love? So in this service, we've gone from this chance to have this prelude into this moment where there's this reminder of the great love of Jesus, into a greeting and into a time of gratitude and thanks. And then I always love it when there's music and there's a worship. Because I believe that our lives are worship services to God. Right? Our lives are that. So is there a song that moves your heart? Is there a song that maybe it moves your loved one's heart? Maybe it's a special family song. Maybe it's July, but you want to have this Christmas song because that's a memory that you all do on Christmas Eve together. Maybe it's a song that was done at a loved one's ceremony that was just been one that's passing down from generation to generation. And when we close this, probably this song that Blake's about to sing will be on your list. But is there that moment, that song that you would like? And as we look at that, we start to say, sometimes it's more than a song, sometimes it's the words, sometimes it's the feelings. When we do a celebration of life here at Stone River, we have this team approach, and a celebration of life becomes the very most important aspect of our day, right? So when we plan for a celebration of life, if we have Bible studies or small groups and they're in the space, then they have to move, right? I mean, we're sweet and kind, but we've even had a celebration of life here at 12:30 where we wrapped up the service and we switched everything because that was the only time the family could have it on a Sunday at 12:30. With this team, what we try to offer is first the care. We try to offer, when we find out that someone is in that moments of palliative or in those last moments, we try to have visits begin to go more and more frequently. We attempt then to offer as much care as the family is willing to have. My favorite times sometimes are around a kitchen table, right? Where we're just hearing stories, and there's going from laughter to crying, to laughter, and it's a phenomenal way of just hearing, right? And being a part and remembering. Then when we start to plan the details of the service, right, we start to look at what that all would entail. So we start to look at something like this and start to try to figure out who are the people that we'd like to be a part of this. And as we continue to work and plan for that service, we see, will it be at Stone River? Will it be at the funeral home? Will it be at the graveside? Where's that going to be? It's a great thing for, no one can read your mind. It's a great thing for you to go ahead and have planned out. And then we look and we see, the team that's preparing this kitchen table team and our Celebration of Life team, what a feast and a gift it is after an incredibly long day. Ella is part of that team that does that organizing, and it's incredible what happens. I don't know how you pull it off, Ella and Rebecca and all of this team, but there's incredible ham usually. I like that. But then there's all of these homemade, the whole church, they have this team and they bring the homemade sides and desserts, and it's just a gift to the family. And then we offer the continual love and care. Sandra she's right now in the midst of offering a grief support group, walking with people through grief. And then my favorite Sunday of the year is All Saints Sunday, the first Sunday in November, where we just get a chance to pause and call out and light a candle for everyone that has died during that year. And then we just get a chance to remember every saint in our life, all the people that have made an impact. We do it in all 4 services, and then we have a luncheon for those families from that year. It's a way that we just continue on a legacy of remembering the beauty of what it is to be a part of family. So this continues, and I have this. There's a part we get to do communion at our 8:15 service every week, and then we do it at all 4 services on the first Sunday, which is this Sunday. But every time we do communion, there's this line about all the saints, and I just picture all the saints, and it's emotional for me, right? When we picture all of the saints in heaven, and we get a chance to remember, right? We get a chance to celebrate. And then as we move on, I love the 23rd Psalm. I think it's one that it has helped so much with care and guiding people through grief throughout the centuries, that it continues to be one that I love to hear in unison. I love if I don't plan it just for me. Hopefully everybody else likes it as well. But it's one of those things that when you hear the Lord's Prayer and you hear that chorus, right, it moves your heart. When I hear the 23rd Psalm, those words have a caring nurture feel to those together. And then we continue to move on. This witness part is a part that I would love for us to look at a couple different components. It's not terrible for you to go ahead and start your story, right? It's not bad for you to go ahead and write about your childhood, your education, your passions, your career, the great loves in your life. It's not a bad thing for you to have that ready, to be able, when someone's going to have to put together something to put into the paper, to give to the funeral home. I bet y'all from Roseland, most families come and they're having to scramble a little bit to come up with the words for the obituary. But imagine if you helped your family members out a little and gave them a little bit of head start. Now, you can date it, September 24, to be continued. Because there's a lot more life in this left. But to be able to jumpstart that, maybe you would like to be able to go ahead and ask your witnesses now. When the time comes in 40 years, would you be willing to speak at my celebration of life and share a witness? I was able to help one family. The woman wanted to hear her witness in the hospital room. My favorite thing to do when we get family together in those last moments are to be able to tell stories, the memories, right? That remember this, and I remember this, and I'll never be the same because of this. But maybe you would like to hear your witnesses even before the service begins. To be able to hear those, so to see if there's people that would be willing to share that. And if not, when we sit around the kitchen table with your loved ones, you can say, here, this is what we want you to talk about. What are some of your favorite scriptures? What's a scripture that would be a healing scripture for your family to hear. My go-to, if you know me at all, it's John 14. I like John. John's my head. But John 14 is don't let your hearts be troubled. It's Jesus preparing his disciples for death. Because where John goes is, as soon as you accept Jesus Christ, the very moment today, you're beginning your eternal life. Right? So in the midst of that journey, we're already enjoying part of our life, so we should go ahead and start acting like that. If there's people we need to forgive, giddy up. Right? If there's injustices that are happening that aren't happening in heaven, we need to get busy. Right? I mean, all of these things that we need to do on earth as we'll do in heaven. Now, in our United Methodist Church has a phenomenal document called Our Social Principles. Christy is aware of this, so she can help find it. You can also find it. It's been updated from the 2024 annual conference. But it has some great documents on how to partner, how to think through all of these conversations that we're having today. How do you go about looking into medical directives and DNRs and quality of life? What are the things that we need to be able to look at in those times? Right? The quality of life there would be talking about your health, your comfort, your satisfaction. Looking at the thought of that Christian perspective and looking at the way that I look at it through the lens of John, that my eternal life has already begun. And quality of life to me is a very important factor for me. I choose quality over quantity a lot. And I want to have quality of life all of my days. So I would love for us to be able to have those kind of conversations with our family. And to have those that could be based in the Bible, in our theology, in the history of our church, to be able to say, this is where we would like to go. This is the decisions that I've made, and I would so honor you to value that decision. And if not, I'm going to show you what I've got from Doug, and here you go. But instead of you just finding this out, this is where I'm going. And then we get to a spot where we get a chance to showcase, because we're still in the prelude of this service, but we get a chance to showcase what kind of legacy we want to live. Right? I mean, Doug mentioned the legacy of people that have tithed their whole life. It might be a nice thing to leave a legacy gift in the tithe, but in this conversation, I'm talking about the idea of what kind of legacy you want to live to your loved ones. Right? How do you want to leave that legacy? That I was fiercely loved. That I never lost at cards. The legacy that you want to live, it's not too late for us to live that. It's not too late for us to be the author of someone that cares passionately for the people they love. Someone that has done everything in their power to leave that kind of legacy, to write that story, and then to be able to celebrate that life. I want in these 30 minutes to celebrate someone that has just walked into a service, who've never met this individual, to know the passion of their love, a glimpse of who they are, of how saddened the world is going to be because they're no longer here, but how better the world is now because of them. To me, that is a phenomenal celebration of life. So you could help your families in that. Help your families have that feeling. What an incredible way to be able to offer care and support than to work on this. You know, in the 80s, I was passionate about this cause. In the 90s, I went here and did this and experienced that. In the 40s, I did this. Some things that people might not ever know about you, but mean so much to who you are and help form and shape you. So the way that we're going to wrap up this day is we're going to have Blake Ferguson, who's our contemporary worship director. He is going to have a chance to be leading us in this incredible anthem. And the way that we would want to leave a celebration of life is to leave with hope and promise, right? To be able to leave with this feeling that God is with us and guiding us and holding us, and never forgetting the promise that God has for us in Jesus Christ. So as we get a chance to sit back and a chance to worship together, my prayer would be for all of us, let's enjoy this time of prelude right now. Let's plan to give ourselves peace and our family peace. And let's enjoy that we're still here on earth. That means we have purpose and meaning to do. We're not done yet. So let's figure out what kind of legacy we want to leave from this point on. Oh, thank you. I heard, yeah, it's always one.
How I long to breathe the air of heaven, where pain is gone and mercy fills the streets. To look upon the one who bled to save me and walk with him for all eternity. There will be a day when all will bow before him. There will be a day when death will be no more. Standing face to face with he who died and rose again. Holy, holy is the Lord. Every prayer we prayed in desperation, the songs of faith we sang through doubt and fear. In the end, we'll see that it was worth it when he returns to wipe away our tears. There will be a day when all will bow before him. There will be a day when death will be no more. Standing face to face with he who died and rose again. Holy, holy is the Lord. On that day, we join the resurrection, stand beside the heroes of the faith. With one voice, 1,000 generations sing, worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Forever he shall reign. So let it be today We shout the hymn of heaven with angels and the saints. We raise a mighty roar, glory to our God, who gave us a life beyond the grave. Holy, holy is the Lord, so let it be today. We shout the hymn of heaven with angels and the saints. We raise a mighty roar, glory to our God, who gave us life beyond the grave. Holy, holy is the Lord. Holy, holy is the Lord. Holy, holy is the Lord.
Thank you so much, Blake. Thank you so much for coming today. I just appreciate everybody coming out. This has been such a great time for us all to think about these incredibly important issues. And again, I hope that this is a time that has opened up these topics for discussion, and that they continue to be open at home so that we can make plans for this and not avoid them or not shy away from them because of the emotions that are involved, but instead discuss these things with our family, with our children, with our friends, and plan for peace. Thank you for coming. And there's a reception in the fellowship hall, just right down the hallway. Just follow the hall. Yes. Oh. Thank you for coming.